Hello and welcome. I'm Sofiko and this is Creative Minds Speaking, a podcast where I have conversations with creative industry professionals, bringing into the spotlight those incredible people who are behind the scenes of art and entertainment is the main goal of this podcast. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are the personal views of the guests only and do not represent in any way the views of their companies. This is an exploration of the guest's journey and views only. Today's guest on the podcast is Ashley Hall. Ashley is my colleague at the Orchard. She's an associate director on the international label management team based in New York. I'm very excited for this chat today. Thank you so much for coming on the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Sofiko. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
I'm so happy we're doing this and thank you for your time. I know you're super busy. So let's start with your background. Please tell us about your journey in the music industry, how it started, why you decided to be in the music industry, and all that, please.
All right. So, first, I'd like to say that I actually got into the music industry right out of finishing university. So, I went to Baruch College, which is a university of the city of New York. And for 4 years, I was at that school, learned so much in my undergraduate career. And at towards the end of my career there, my school career, I realized that I really wanted to do something in music because my original path was on track to actually be in the accounting program. So I was in school.
What?
Yeah, I was in school to be an accountant at first. And I remember my first semester of sophomore year, I took 5 minutes worth of an accounting class and said, this is not for me.
How did you end up there, even?
Because you know what, I growing up, like, one thing that was always instilled in me was trying to get into a profession where I could continue to make myself marketable, always have a job, and things like that. Just like have some type of safety in my occupation. So one of the safest jobs that exists within like a capitalist economy is an accounting job because everyone needs an accountant, particularly in the U.S.
That's true. That's true.
Right? So, and I used to be, that's the key here, used to be very good at math. So with that, I thought, well, why don't I explore becoming an accountant, which is part of the reason why I chose Baruch to be my number one choice in university. So I was there for 2 years, finished up a lot of general requirements, and then started the accounting track program with the first basic accounting class. And just sat in on one class and realized that I didn't want to do that anymore. And it was a bit of a shell shock. I had to take a step back and just like really think, okay, where do I go from here now? Because this was my plan ever since I graduated from high school. And I took the semester to just finish up some more general requirements and just think on it. Spoke to the school advisors, and I let them know what I've always wanted to do was be in music some way, shape, or form. I just didn't know how to get there. So one of the advisors and guidance counselors at the college let me know that there was this program that had started up not too long ago at Baruch called the Management of Musical Enterprises major. So they understood that although I wanted to do something in music, I wanted to do something in music business. So with that, I started on that track and said, okay, let me take a few classes just to begin this track and see where it goes and how it takes me while I finish up the rest of my general requirements. And if I have to pivot, I'll pivot again. And I ended up loving it. And I had music theory classes. There was a piano class involved in my requirements for finishing up that major in my degree, which was so much fun. I had loved piano, and I used to play piano when I was younger. And to pick it up again as a requirement in college just felt natural. So that program overall like taught me so much with regards to music history, music theory, and also the business side of things, because part of the major involves me having to choose a path in the business school. So I chose marketing, and I started taking internet marketing courses, digital marketing courses, and rolling that all into one all encompassing like fine arts, like music business major degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so I graduated with that and in a minor in psychology, actually, because one thing that I had in the back of my mind for a long time too was debating on becoming like a psychotherapist. And once I graduated from school, but again, that would involve medical school, lots of years of school. Wasn't sure if I really wanted to commit to that, but music felt right.
Uh-huh.
So, coming into the end of my senior year, I was looking for another internship to do in school, just to finish up my requirements. And I had a colleague in one of my classes that was already interning at this place called the Orchard. So they had
Wonderful
interned,
place.
right? Wonderful place. So I interned. I took his internship really after he had already been there for about a year. So he had interned with the interactive marketing team at the time there, and then he interned with the physical sales department his second semester and wanted to move on to something different, even though they wanted to take him back again for a third semester. So he asked, would you want to go for an interview? And connected me with his physical sales internship supervisor, and I went, sat in on the interview, and realized within 15 minutes that I would 100% want to pursue interning with the company. One of the first things that my intern supervisor at the time let me know of was that he was like, I have an understanding of like the music business for decades before this. This is not an internship where I'm going to sit and ask you to go get me coffee unless you're getting some for yourself and I'm
Mm-hmm.
paying for it. Like this is an internship where you're here to learn, and I want to be able to help you learn through the entire summer. So that was the summer of 2016 that I interned with the Orchard, and I fell in love with the company very quickly. I realized how human everyone was
Mm-hmm.
within the company, and everyone that approached me was genuine and just really wanted to get to know me as a person, even though I was just an intern. So once I finished up my internship, I was finished with school entirely at that point, and it was time for me to figure out, okay, now what am I going to do from an occupation perspective? Like, how am I going to start my career? And I was very fortunate after doing about a month after school of job searching. A position had opened up at the Orchard that caught my attention and seemed as though it could fit my current expertise just having come out of school. So that was to be on the client services team at the Orchard, which is an extension of label management. So I did all of the interviews. I let my intern supervisors know that I was really, really excited to try to get the opportunity to work at the company officially. And they wrote letters of recommendation for me, and just really helped me navigate the process from their perspective, just like advising me on like how to best approach certain questions, or just like giving me general advice about the industry too while I went through this process, which helped me tremendously. So I ended up getting the job, and I started on the client services team at the Orchard and was there for just about 2 years until the artist services team started to grow and become a bigger part of the Orchard. 2 years into my client services job, I started to gain a lot of interest with that department and in that team, and I would ask a lot of questions, find ways to assist that team in any way that I could from what I already knew from having learned it being on the client services team. And I got the opportunity to be the first label manager on the artist services team in the US because
Wow.
there became a need for it. And a lot of my job was very logistic driven and operational. So a lot of what my job consisted there was to just make sure all of the optics and operations and like release deliveries and different things worked out properly. And of course, having been the first person and the only person to be on the label management team for that department, there was a lot of trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of learning and a lot of growing that I needed to do to take on that job and do it well. And I gave myself grace to figure it out and
Mm-hmm.
allow myself to ask a ton of questions and be able to lean on people within the company that were mentors to me, and helped me navigate the landscape in order to feel confident and understand what my role truly was on that department. And I grew into it and flourished in it. And from there, I had been on the team for about a year and a half until I had an interest to expand that even further beyond just operations and logistics and optics, and wanted to take back take it back a bit into what I was starting to learn a lot more while I was still on client services for an overall label management career experience, which was one thing that I didn't even get a chance to say at the beginning of all of this is what the client services team as an extension of label management was. So to begin there really quickly and pivot back to that, the client services team overall, they a team of a few managing um, a few a few couple thousand labels between just a team of four. So that sounds extremely daunting, but it truly worked out in such a way that there was a system in place that we collaborated on in terms of how we worked with our label accounts. And one of the biggest components of this role is understanding that a label manager in any capacity, whether it's on client services, whether it's on the official US team or international team, is that we are liaisons for our clients and we want the best for our clients, whatever that means with regards to their business needs. So we have ways of being able to ask the right questions, or have foundational knowledge in different parts of the industry or different departments that the orchard has, which are many, with regards to accounting, with regards to performance rights, with regards to marketing. Like there are so many different places that the orchard touches within the industry that we as label managers do our best to assist our clients in knowing how to utilize. So with that, I was learning a lot of that in terms of the foundational knowledge on client services, expanded in the operational side of that on the artist services team when I was there. And now I have officially transitioned as of this year over to the international label management team. And that is like a heightened level of 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 expertise that I've been able to get over the past few months that I've been with this team. And it's very much the same. It's what can we do for our labels and managed clients to make sure that their businesses continue to grow, and where do we fit ourselves into that in order to make sure that they have trust in the company and trust in us to be able to facilitate what their goals are as a business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I am now. So I am on international label management, and I manage some amazing clients and labels. I'm extremely excited for what the next however many years, months, however long I'm able to continue on in this role, whatever that entails, I'm ready for it and I'm excited for it. So, as you can see, my trajectory going from being in university, originally wanting to be an accountant, realizing after literally a day of being in one class that I couldn't do that anymore, and switching my trajectory in college to management and musical enterprises, interning at the orchard, and now my what will be in 2 weeks 5 years that I've been at the company since my college career ended. There's a lot that happened in between that, and I just tried to sum it up in about 10 minutes.
This, this is such a beautiful journey. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Um, you mentioned that you're on the international team right now. when you say that, I don't know if you're allowed to say with what clients you're working, but can you say with what markets you're working, with what international markets you're working?
Yes, 100%. So, right now, I have focus on clients that are based out of like Puerto Rico, for instance, and I also have clients that have a lot of like knowledge base and history in South Korea. So, being on international, and in essence, really means that I have clients that I work with that are not US based or that have gained popularity outside of the US first. And
Mm-hmm.
now part of our role is to help garner popularity and consumer base for these artists and labels that we work with in the US. How do we do that? And how do we continue to expand on their international reach as well? So if an artist or a label that I'm working with is based out of Puerto Rico, then they are well known already in their territory, and they're well known across let's say Latin America, and different parts of the world that are very like Spanish or Latin focused. And same thing with the artists that I work with currently that gained popularity primarily first in South Korea. So they garnered their fan base through TV personality appearances there, or through like music that they started to create and first got popularity out of in that territory. And now, with that being said, they are trying to expand on their market base and their consumer base and gain more fans in the US as priority. But also there are many other territories that they may not even have touched yet with their music.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we service that music to those territories, such as Russia, such as the UK, may not be as up to speed on what these labels or managed clients are up to or doing, but they have fans that would warrant us being able to explore that market, just and be able to create like a much more a much more invigorated fan base there. Africa, there's a ton of consumer potential for a lot of different managed clients for different genres across the board in different
Mm-hmm.
territories and countries and Africa as well. So that's the essence of what my job is, and how we do that is usually based in the marketing that we assist, in terms of just like being able to talk to our managed clients and advise them and say, okay, we've had conversations with so and so in these territories, and these are the things that we would advise in terms of what you could do and
Mm-hmm.
what we feel could be really impactful for you in these territories. So although, in terms of specifics, um, just for the sake of protecting confidentiality of my clients, I want to be able to make sure that I highlight that they are coming from a lot of different places outside of the U.S. and they are 100%, like our main priority in terms of how we grow their popularity and fan bases outside of their home territories or their like known territories. That's the best way for me to describe it.
Thank you so much. That is so interesting and sounds quite interesting but challenging. And we
Yes.
love this.
Quiet. It's very interesting. It's so much, it's a lot of fun, and it's also something that helps keep me up at night with regards to the emails, just like the conversations that I have with my clients. I try to take a very personalized approach with the
Mm-hmm.
labels and management teams that I work with, and I want them to make sure that they have trust in me that I'm doing all that I can for them, and to make their artists and their businesses better,
Mm-hmm.
or just or grow them to an extent. So, it's definitely it's a job that asks a lot of someone that cares
Yeah.
exponentially about, the work that they're doing. I do pride myself on being someone that cares very deeply about the things that I work on and the people that I work with. So I invest myself wholeheartedly, and with that there comes a lot of internal pressure that I build on in myself. There's a lot of pressure that I do feel from a perspective of setting goals and being able to meet them and exceed expectations as opposed to just meeting expectations. There's a lot that goes into the job of being a label manager as a whole to start, just understanding that there are different places, there's a lot of different spaces within the industry that a label manager touches to be able to
Mm-hmm.
talk to our labels. And Sofico, you understand this as well from your perspective and your role, because you also have managed clients as well. So we can relate in terms of understanding that, like, we know our role is in part attached to the success that those managed labels and clients that we have with our
Definitely.
company.
Mm-hmm.
It's attached to how we communicate with them, and how we continue to build on our relationships with them.
Sounds like your psychology minor is helpful here.
It definitely is. 100%.
Another question that I had for you, and you said some things on this already, is how do you build good relationships with your artists and their teams? Do you have some tips maybe for us?
Absolutely. So I believe that, like, what the people that we speak with and the labels that we collaborate with and communicate with, at the end of the day, they're all still people. So how do you build a relationship when you start off a friendship with someone? You start by creating a space that can be personalized, where they learn about you in terms of what your expertise is and what your history has been within the industry. That's first and foremost. That's the first thing that they learn about you when you get introduced to a new client. However, there's a lot that they don't know about you too, and vice versa. And you understand what their where their expertise lies in terms of, like, how they manage clients, or the successes that they've had off the back of the artists that are attached to their labels, and you know them from a business oriented perspective. But and we also work in an industry and in a business where, like, being able to be outward and who you are as a person is 100% welcome. As far as I'm concerned, no one in the music business is a robot. We're not built to be like robots. We're not built to be very cut and just straight cut and dry, just like not having any type of personality. Everyone that I've encountered in this industry has a very unique, specific, and typically fun personality to work with, because we all, at the end of the day, the reason why we work in music is because we love music. So that's the one thing, at bare minimum, we could all relate on, and we can all start a conversation on from an exciting perspective. So one of the first things that I like to do when I start talking to some of my managed clients is understand where their music prowess, or where their interests in music started. And I get that conversation started with them when I'm on kickoff calls, or as I'm first getting to know them. And with that, there's a barrier or a wall that starts to break down a bit, because also you're getting to know someone from a more personal standpoint, still within a professional space. And since you're both working in the same industry, it's very easy to riff off of. Okay, I love, for instance, I will tell you, Sofico, what's called soca music. So it's the soca is soul calypso mashed together. And it's the style of music that was born out of the Caribbean, because where, in terms of where my heritage and background is from, my family actually was not brought up in America. I am a second generation born and raised in the US. My mother and father are first generation born here, and my grandparents actually emigrated over from Trinidad and Tobago. So from since my grandparents' time, all that they've known is Caribbean culture, and that's been instilled in me, and that's how I grew up also. And I grew up with that music. I grew up with soca music. I grew up with reggae. I grew up with dancehall. And I also grew up with R&B because my mom was first generation born here. So her teenage years, after coming here and living in the U.S., one of the biggest and most popular forms of music for particularly for like Black culture was R&B, and was definitely hip hop as well. So I grew up with like Lauryn Hill as being like one of my favorite artists, and I've always loved Keisha Cole as one of my favorite R&B artists because when I was younger, you would think that someone hurt me with the way that I would sing Keisha Cole's songs from a feelings perspective. And I was about maybe like 10. So when her song started to come out and I started to listen to her. But yeah, so just thinking back on that and like where my music interests lie and how I explain that to the managed clients that I work with, my taste is very eclectic in the sense that I don't just love R&B, I don't just love hip hop, I don't just love soca. I also really love reggaeton. I love like Latinx based music. I love bachata. I love K-pop also. I love mainstream pop. Like there's so many different interests that I have within this industry. So having my clients understand that is also like just again really key to how you start a relationship with them and how you start to talk to them in a more personalized way. And then as time goes on, I think there's a comfort level that starts to build when they begin to see the results that come out of the work that you're doing together also too. So now they're seeing a lot of tangible benefit off of the back of the work and expertise that you have as a label manager. That's one thing that's helped me as well in terms of building relationships with my clients. Like I ask what their expectations are. I try to figure out how I can fit and build into that with them, and then I try to bring them opportunities and benefits to be able to continue to grow that. And when they start to see that, it just builds more trust.
Love it, love it. Such a great approach.
Start with music. I always say within this industry, if you're gonna build relationships with anyone that you meet, it's start with the music and start with what you love. And within this industry, and then you'll start to learn a lot more off the back of that. One thing that I think COVID has definitely taken away from us for now is the ability to also be able to garner those relationships in person, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we haven't been able to travel. Lockdowns are lifting and coming back left and right, and it does make for a different kind of experience when you are meeting or getting a chance to speak to your managed clients through a screen or just over a phone to start. There's still definitely many opportunities to build on the relationships from that perspective, but when things do begin to open up again, or just thinking about before we started the COVID lockdowns and things like that, and we're able to see each other in person, I think that is an invaluable touch to how you also try to build those relationships. So whenever it's definitely 100% safe to be able
Mm-hmm.
to get back into travel and being able to form those impersonal and much more real time, real life connections with people, I think it's gonna it makes an even deeper impact as you build on relationships with people.
Yeah, hopefully it's gonna be very soon.
Hopefully,
Hopefully.
hopefully.
Um, from this conversation, I think it's very clear that you're very passionate about your work, about the orchard, about your role. Um, but would you say is your the most favorite part of your job?
My favorite part of my job. Ooh, that's a great question. Okay, I think honestly, my favorite part about I'll talk from a more logistics perspective first. My favorite part about my job is honestly the operational part of it. I love. I've learned that the way that my brain works, it works in logistics and it works and it works in just A to B. You get from point A, you get to point B, and then you're finished. And that's again a lot of what my role consisted of when I was on the artist services department.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what my role was just making sure that all the operations behind a release for each digital release campaign or physical release campaign that we did worked from A to B. And once I finished with that project, I moved on to the next.
Mm-hmm.
What I've learned in coming into this international label management role is that yes, there's still a component of that I'm comfortable in and I thrive in because I know how to work the logistics behind the scenes. The marketing side of it though is very different. And I've never really thought my brain to work in marketing per se. So I've always thought that I would struggle with figuring out, okay, how do I continue to market a release after it's out? Like what do you do? Like what do you call a phase two of a campaign, and how do you continue to build an audience after something's already released? Like how do you get more fans? Because part of the main goal prior to an album or an EP or a single coming out is to build on the fan base and get people excited for a release to come, so that you can build on the performance of that work once it's out. So after that, it's tracking metrics, it's looking at analytics, it's constantly going back to seeing what did work and what worked well, and what can we do again, and how can we make it different, how was it unique, and like all of those components I love about my job now, but I also find to be the most challenging part of my job, because there's no one size fits all. There is no, okay, if you do this then this will happen. It's in a sense, marketing as a whole, from just like a music digital marketing perspective, it's a game of chance. So you can't control really and truly after a certain point what happens in the market after a song has come out. You can't. There's no
Mm-hmm.
controlling it, because you can't control people's emotions. You can't control how people gravitate to a track. You can't control how many times they listen to it just because they liked it, or because they felt something from it. And you also can't control who doesn't like the music if that happens to be the case. So
Imagine we could.
I know. And imagining if we could would make my logistic brain just like be in absolute heaven. But there is no world that exists, because everyone has free will to listen to and do what they want with the music that they consume. And that's why everybody has a favorite, or that's why everybody has something that they prefer in terms of that, like their personality, or like what makes people tick from an
Mm-hmm.
interest perspective. So because of that, that's what I think makes the marketing part, like, or just like interactive digital marketing part of music, so difficult sometimes to
Mm-hmm.
really form a plan around, because sometimes it can't, and sometimes it's not planned. And a lot of the time it's there are things going on behind the scenes that are like planting seeds for reactions to happen with consumers for music that we're putting out. That's why like viral charts exist now on like Spotify and TikTok. TikTok has become an absolute, like, just major platform for discovery and for consumption for a lot of artists. So figuring out ways to work with services like that and continue to build on visibility of the content that exists on that service, or the artists that are like showing their personality on that service. How do we continue to amplify that and then draw it back to the work that they're doing with their music?
Mm-hmm.
That part is, it's hard. It's a
Mm-hmm.
hard job, and to do that not with just one project, but with sometimes six, seven, eight, nine, 10 projects at a time, your brain has to shift. So it's like you have focus on one project and that's a priority, and then the second project comes up and that's also a priority, and then thinking about and trying to come up with ideas for all of them, and tracking metrics for all of them, and tracking performance, and trying to continue to grow on all these different projects. It sometimes it does feel daunting
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that there's just so much that there's possibility to do, but again, there's no real telling what the reaction will be off the back of of those suggestions or those ideas. Sometimes you just have to throw it out into the market and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have this whole plan, but the track gets viral better, or it doesn't get viral at all as you maybe expected or planned. Do you have to do many of those adjustments once the track is actually out? And are there a lot of situations when you kind of have to back up from the initial plan and start doing something else right on the while it's happening.
Yep, yep, exactly. So just like you said, Sophie, a lot of what we do in terms of creating the marketing plan, because each campaign that we work, we try to build a very robust plan around. So we'll say, okay, pre-release or before release comes out, this is what we're planning to do, and these are the things that we're going to execute in preparation for the release to come out for the existing fans and to build on new fans. And then once the track is out, there sometimes there are plans where we, like I said before, plant a seed to create a moment that consumers can attach to and attach themselves to quickly, so that we can gain momentum for the music, or build excitement for the music either before or after it's out. And there, even though we build a plan around that 9 times out of 10, that doesn't mean that the plan is always going to go to plan, right? So like the plan
Mm-hmm.
doesn't always, it isn't always executed and then performing the same way that we would expect or what we would want. So very much so, we will find ways to pivot. We'll find ways to change our course and see, okay, well, if this isn't working over here, what's working over there? And now let's turn more of the attention from what's not working to what is. And that takes a lot of quick action, a lot of like quick critical thinking and execution and movement to be able to facilitate that. And sometimes there when a viral moment happens, particularly, it'll happen either right, sometimes it'll happen right around the time something's coming or like a new release is coming, and that's like the perfect storm. That's exactly what you would want. And then sometimes a viral moment doesn't happen until months after something is out. So, and again, it all is attached to the fact that consumers will attach themselves to something in their own way and in their own time. So we can throw something out to fans on a service or on a social platform. And I'm sure, like for instance, in Russia, there's this service called VK, right?
Mm-hmm.
So VK, as I understand it, is its own social platform in that way too, where there's a lot of like fan chatter that goes around different releases, or different content that people are excited about, and then they get their friends excited about, and then friends of friends get excited about, and that's how you build on the virality of something. And so for us in the U.S. right now, like one of the main drivers of that is TikTok, and that service has definitely like just like catapulted a lot of music that we've seen within the industry, and just from the sake of people going onto the platform, using that sound in 15 to 30 seconds and creating something that people can relate to, or a mass of people find entertaining or hilarious, or something that they can attach their feelings to, and then that will spring off other people to react in that same way on platform, and that's how we've seen a lot of things build and just gain popularity, sometimes literally overnight. So
Mm-hmm.
but there's no way to really plan for that. I think there really truly isn't. For the
You
long,
can just hope and pray.
that's it. You can just hope. You could set up and say, we would like this to happen in this way or in a particular way, and then something totally different happens off the back of that, and you may still get the same end result that you were hoping for, and sometimes you might not.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, part of this industry is also understanding when to change course, how to do it quickly, and then having a team around it that understands how to follow that protocol.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have really amazing people and clients that we work with externally, like labels and artists that we work with, that understand this as well and will work with us in order to facilitate the same result that we're all trying to achieve. And then also, there are a lot of people within the orchard that have expertise, or have knowledge, or have experience in seeing how different activations or plans have worked, and then trying to amplify that and make it unique for each artist and label that we work with.
Thank you so much. You shared so many wonderful, interesting, useful tips. It's so nice to hear all that from you.
Thank you.
Um, Another question that I have is about raises. I noticed that you had several big raises, and basically, in 5 years from being an intern, you became an associate director, which is wonderful.
Thank you.
And of course, it's because you put a lot of work and you're very passionate about your job. But are there any other tips that you could share on how to kind of be noticed maybe by your boss, by those who are above you, or would you say it comes very naturally, or I don't know, you tell us.
Okay, yeah, 100%. I think for me personally, from my experience, right, like going from an internship, then starting as a coordinator. So that's like entry level, very much entry level position at this company, and then moving from a coordinator position to a manager position on that same client services team, and then moving laterally, like just going from a manager on one team to a manager on another, and working as hard as I could on the artist services department while I was there to then be elevated to associate director, and then moving into an associate director role on international. In between all of that, there was, like you said, a lot of work that went into it. I poured my whole self into every role that I've had at this company. And personally, what I've experienced is that when you begin to have a level of like humble confidence in what you're able to do, and the things that you're capable of, and you're able to now share the result of the work that you've done, people will notice that, usually off
Hmm.
just off the strength of your work. That's typically what's happened to me in my career here so far there, because one thing that I've noticed at the origin in terms of how you move around, or like even me saying that I've had the ability to move into three different roles in 5 years within this company, I think also shows that there are companies that exist that will allow you to explore interests that you have, and in an effort to make sure that you feel valued, and in an effort to make sure that you understand that you are a priority to the company. And that's what the orchard's giving me. They've given me the opportunity to be able to move within the company, and move pretty quickly within the company, and and thrive on the things that interest me, or explore the things that interest me and build on them and create new levels of expertise for myself. But the way that I've been able to do that, yes, has been off the back of some pretty fantastic and amazing managers that I've had, that have encouraged me nonstop to just and consistently to just continue to explore what I think is right for me.
Hmm.
But also too, like I've had to make myself vocal also in a lot of ways. So no one, I truly believe that even though people will notice that you are a person that is entirely capable and of value to the things that you're being asked to do in your day-to-day responsibilities, no one gives you anything that you would want. So you have to remain consistent in being vocal outwardly about the things that you want to do, and where you want to go, and places that you like to see yourself in, with either with the company, or in external opportunities that the company can maybe offer you. So, I've always been very steadfast in that. I've had very open and transparent conversations with every single one of my managers, and making sure that they had a full understanding, and there was no hesitation in knowing that, okay, Ashley's been saying that she wanted to explore this part of the business, or Ashley's been very vocal about the fact that she finds a lot of interest here in this particular department. Now, like I would work with my managers to then like come up with a plan of action and be like, okay, if I want to do this, like how do we do it, and how do we get me to this point, how do you help me achieve this goal?
Hmm.
And I think that is the main thing really that's truly helped me, aside from like the my level of output and work. It's been how vocal I've tried to make myself and advocating for myself. No one, I believe, is going to be your biggest advocate than you for yourself, and in any industry, whether it's in music, whether it's in like corporate business, whether as an artist, like no one is going to be the biggest champion for yourself than you. So you need to just be able to keep on in conversation. And if and I've seen this happen in different instances outside of this industry for people that I know, where they have been vocal, or they have been very very outward in what they wanted, and they weren't getting the same level of output that they were asking their industry or their company of, and then they had to figure out how to then move on or move past that. And that's something, again, that's a huge challenge for everyone if they ever come to that point. I hope to never have to come to that point in any instance in my career, but as I understand it, and like the way that I understand things right now, with career trajectory as a whole, I will continue to make myself extremely marketable within this industry. I hope to stay in this industry for the rest of my working life. And if it comes down to it, where I have another epiphany, like I did with wanting to be an accountant and then getting into music, that I want to just change industries overall. I don't see that happening, but I want to be able to have the confidence in myself to be able to be transparent about that and be open about it, and then figure out ways to achieve that the best way that I can.
This is so wise, and I feel like I personally really needed to hear this. So thank you so much for sharing.
Of course, yes,
I really loved your idea about humble confidence
yeah,
and that you're your biggest advocate. I think this is very true, and we should never forget about this.
no, never forget about it.
Um, what advice would you give to yourself? Um, kind of to the Ashley who's just started in the music industry. What would you want to hear?
Ooh, oh, that's a good one. When I first started in this industry, I think that one of the main things that I wish that I could have told myself now is to not be afraid to to really ask questions that I didn't feel like I was able to ask because of my level of expertise, which at the time when I started in this industry was very low. I didn't know a lot. And I say this all the time now. Still, I still don't know a lot. There's a lot that there's so much more that I know now than I did 5 years ago. That But there's also still so much that I have no idea about, or there are things that I could continue to really build my knowledge base in. And I'm a very big advocate of the fact that I don't know everything. So, but I when I was in my earlier days in my career, I realized that I found myself to be very, very afraid to ask a lot of questions towards things, and kind of just like took more of a backseat approach and tried to just watch and learn and then do from watching as opposed to doing from asking.
Hmm.
So that's something that I think a lot of people struggle with. Well beyond entry level careers, I think there are a lot of people that, including myself at times, where I get hesitant to ask questions for fear of not feeling not feeling like I for feeling like I will look like I don't know what I'm doing, or I
Hmm.
don't know what I'm talking about, or that I feel like I should have knowledge base in something, and and realize that I didn't know as much as I felt like I could have at that moment. So there's a lot of grace that I would want myself to have, in my earlier career as well, to allow myself to pick things up and learn and ask questions that I really wish that I had asked earlier on when I first started. Um, so yeah, so that I think that's the main thing I would tell myself. Just don't be afraid to approach people. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Like, you don't have to sit back and just watch things happen and learn from
Hmm.
that. You can be vocal, you can be very outward in trying to get it together, or
Mm-hmm.
get a better understanding of something. You don't have to just sit back and watch. And usually
Mm-hmm.
when that happens, you miss out on opportunities.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And what would you say is your personal definition of success?
My personal definition of success is I feel at my best when something clicks in my brain. So like if I'm learning things, or if I'm getting to know something new, and I can say to myself, okay, now I get it. Like that's my measure of success, because then I file that away in the back of my brain somewhere, and being able to then take that knowledge and then use it actively for my clients and for the artists that I work with, and then them being able to learn from me in an instance. For me, that's a huge measure of success, because then that makes me feel like, okay, this is exactly what I want to be able to do. Like these are the things that I want to be able to do, not just for my clients, but also for like people that I work with,
Mm-hmm.
and anybody that like chooses me as a mentor in some way, shape, or form. Being able to have a wealth of knowledge and then give it all back in some way to people is my measure of success. So I that's again another reason why I switched over to international label management in my latest career venture, because there's a lot that I realize that this team has their hands in, and has expertise in, and I want to be able to get all of that together for myself, so I can give it all back to the world.
That's so beautiful. You're such a generous person.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that, and I mean it, and I really do value like the genuine nature of how I am, or how I try to be. I value like other people being genuine to me and being real with me. Because that's all I would want to be able to give people. I don't want to give people a fake version of myself in any instance, and I
Mm-hmm.
never try to do that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm and I am one thing that I also really value, and I think in a lot of ways, just as humanity is lost, is kindness. I value kindness tenfold, and I've seen things. I've seen like like more like unkind acts in different instances, just across, like again, across various industries. But it exists in the music industry too. Like there are people that have been looked over because of how they've treated other people in the business. And in that same and that's in the flip side of that, I've also seen the kindness and the genuine care and personality of an artist or a manager help really build and flourish that artist's career. And that's just off the back of people just like you. People like you because like you they see how kind you are. They see that you want good, to see the good in people. And I think that for me, that's something that I've always touted as well. Like I do the best that I can every day to be a kind person, because one, you don't know what people are going through, especially now in the midst of us being in a pandemic, in a global pandemic. It's so important for us to just be careful with each other. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, not just be careful with ourselves. That's definitely one of the most important things. But while you're also being careful with yourself, be careful with how you approach other people, and understand that everyone has their own battles. Everyone has their own things going on that may be really like taxing and trying for them to go through on their day to day. So the least that we can do for each other is to provide some type of level of kindness and care, even at at its foundation, at its bare minimum. So I think that's something that I really truly value about how I approach things, and how I see things, and how I would want to see things happen for people within this industry too.
I feel so lucky that I'm your colleague and we're working at the same company and that we're having this conversation right now. And Even right now, I'm learning so much from you. Really, thank you so much.
Oh, Sofiko, thank you seriously for having me. I never realized how much I have to say on these things until I'm actually in these types of conversations. So the fact you've given me this platform, like your platform, to be able to talk about these things is really, really I take that wholeheartedly, and I don't take it for granted. And I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I actually have some very quick questions at the end of the podcast. I always ask these like four typical questions.
Let's go. I'm ready.
And those are, what are your book, movie, and song recommendations for our listeners?
Okay, so in terms of book recommendations, I will say the most recent book that I've read, probably multiple times at this point, is, and excuse my French, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Like that right now is it's kind of structured as a self help book, but it's very much just like it highlights the need for people that have so much care for so many things in the world to take a step back and be mindful of the things that you give your energy to, whether it's positive energy for yourself and then relaying that out to the world, and also very much so your negative energy. Like you have to be really careful about how you give your negative energy out. So that right now is one of the best book recommendations that I can give. And another a song recommendation that I can give is, what's the song I'm listening to right now? I actually love, and I'm absolutely obsessed with the song "Program" by the artist Blast. So I'm not sure if you know who Blast is, but Blast is like a hip hop, like a rhythmic hip hop artist that's up and coming right now, in particularly in the hip hop space, and I have been playing that song on repeat every single day. So it's one of my favorite things. Please take a listen to it when you have a chance. It's fantastic. I love that song.
I will write after the recording.
Very good.
um, who would you say is your celebrity crush?
Ooh, ooh, that's a good one. I think my celebrity crush, I'm gonna sound what I'm gonna call to be very basic right now, but I think my celebrity crush is definitely Michael B. Jordan. Michael B.
That's
Jordan.
a wonderful choice. What can I say?
Thank you so much. I love Michael B. Jordan, but I also love his girlfriend Lori Harvey and how they are together. So I know I have no chance and no stake in that game, but I love Michael B. Jordan. He's definitely a huge celebrity crush.
What is the most useless talent that you have?
My most useless talent. Okay, I think that's a great question. In terms of a useless talent, um, I know how to cross my eyes. Very useless talent. I really should never be doing it because I'm sure, like, if I cross my eyes one too many times, they're gonna stay that way. That's what my grandma would always tell me when I was younger. Um, but that 100% most useless talent.
And the last question, um, who or what inspires you the most?
Oh, I love that one. Okay. Um, I would say, and again, for the sake of sounding very basic, but I mean it. I believe that my mom is my biggest inspiration, and everything foundationally that I do. My mom is how I got to learn about the importance of kindness that I was talking about before, because my mom has always said that the way that she's treated people, she believes has gifted her and in the universe with regards to myself and my sister, my little sister. She believes that her kindness that she's given out to the world has come back to her in good karma with how I am, and the things that I've been able to be successful in, and the things that my sister has also been able to do and be successful in, that she didn't have my mom didn't have the opportunity to do or to partake in when she was our ages. So I think that understanding like the foundation of who I am as a person, and and how I approach people, how I approach situations, and the things that I do and how I do them, it all comes back to all of the things that I've learned in terms of how to be the person that I am from my mom.
That's so beautiful. This is such a beautiful way of wrapping up this episode. Thank you so, so much again for your time. Thank you for sharing your story with us. You are such a wonderful professional, and more than that, you're a wonderful person, which is even more important than being a good professional. Thank you so much for being here today, and best of luck with everything. And I hope you'll have even more and more wonderful promotions and opportunities. And if you decide to switch your career for something else, you'll be very successful in that as well. So best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much, Sofiko. And just as the same as you were telling me that I'm wonderful, you are fantastic. I really respect the platform that you're creating, and I really hope to continue to see it grow and your fan base continue to flourish off the back of what you're doing. So, very well done. I'm very happy to be
Thank you
here.
so much. Thank you.